Released in 2006 for the PlayStation Portable by publisher Konami and developed by Kojima Productions, Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops serves as a direct sequel to Metal Gear Solid 3: Snake Eater. While released in 2006 in North America and Japan, the game didn't see a release in Europe or Australia until May 2007. In a Twitch interview in 2014, series creator Hideo Kojima stated that the overall story of the game is canon to the series, but a lot of the smaller details deviate from the Metal Gear saga. He later goes on to state in an interview a year later that the games in the Metal Gear saga are the games that he has personally designed and produced, and seeing as Portable Ops was not listed as part of the Metal Gear saga, the amount of the story considered canon can be a possible subject of debate. The game also had a standalone expansion released the following year called Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops Plus, which had more of a focus on the game's online aspects, as well as enhancing the overall gameplay of Portable Ops. However, for the sake of this review, I'll only cover Portable Ops as Plus adds no significant details to the Metal Gear story. In this game, set 6 years after the conclusion of the events of Metal Gear Solid 3: Snake Eater, Naked Snake, now known as Big Boss, finds himself a prisoner in an old Soviet missile silo complex on the San Hieronymo Peninsula, which is actually the Magdalena River basin if you're going by an actual map. Quickly finding out that the Fox unit that he and Major Zero were once members of had turned renegade, Snake and Zero are framed with the former being held responsible for spearheading the rebellion, and the latter for committing treason. After Snake discovers this, he and Green Beret Roy Campbell seek to stop Fox Unit Commander Gene from starting up another nuclear war. But how can you stop a man who's rallied all the Soviet soldiers to his side? By rallying some of those soldiers to your side. This serves as the basic game plan for Portable Ops, which I'll cover more of in The Good. The overall idea of the game is one that I'm very fond of. Subduing and recruiting soldiers, officers, and even certain bosses is a fun and rewarding aspect of the game. With the exception of your first soldier, who is named Jonathan by default, each person you capture, with the exception of certain characters, will be randomly assigned a name. You can even enter in passwords to unlock certain characters too, or rescue them from particular missions. Not all of your characters will be available after you capture them though. The units spend time as prisoners before being convinced to join Snake's army. From there, once they become available, you can add them to your sneaking teams, assign them to recon units to get ammunition and missions regarding where they got posted to, or to R&D and medical teams to give your squad an advantage in the upcoming missions. Every single one of these groups play a big role throughout the course of the game, especially since you won't be playing as Snake for the whole game. Mission variety, although somewhat limited, are enough to keep me wanting to play the game. One mission I might need to go and obtain a weapon, others, as I said earlier, might have me rescuing a prisoner. Guard placements appear to be different enough to keep me on my toes as well, which keeps the replay factor fresh. The other upside to doing this is of course to recruit more members over to Snake's side, as enemies will generally have different stats. The weapons themselves are very handy in terms of outfitting your squad members, making them very formidable in battle if they aren't already. The story I found to be quite engaging. It wasn't a particularly difficult story to follow, and a lot of the story's theme, namely Gene's nation for soldiers, serves as the founding idea for the concept of Outer Heaven. It also shows some character development for Snake, as even making you emphasise with some characters which I find are key when it comes down to good storytelling. The Metal Gear saga is very well known for its story, and this game certainly doesn't disappoint. However, that's enough for the good. It's time for us to go to the disappointing part, otherwise known as the bad. I think the biggest gripe I had was with the controls. I would have probably thrown my PSP at the nearest wall a long time ago if I was attempting to finish this game on it. Being able to map the directional buttons to the second analog stick of the Vita, or since what you're looking at here is an emulated version, a controller was an absolute godsend. It makes controlling the camera a lot easier, as well as a lot of the boss fights, considering one of them requires you to change your control layout to confuse them. Other gripes I had include being unable to climb some obstacles despite it being no problem for Snake, or well, anyone else being able to climb them, as well as crawling out of vents or, well, trying to crawl back into them. Even with easier camera controls, the camera can certainly work either to your strength or to your weakness as you progress throughout the game. These issues alone I felt was the major shortcoming of this game. I also wasn't keen on the idea that my teammates would respawn all the way back at the truck after I've told them to carry a potential recruit back. It feels like quite a hassle switching from Snake back to Jonathan or whoever I'm using and positioning them around the level to make transporting enemies easier. Sometimes even the radio frequency wasn't working properly, as I'd have to wait for the person I was dragging to be lying flat and the item that they dropped settle on the floor. It also doesn't help that all of your teammates are less durable than Snake, so there's less room for error, but I guess that's the challenge of it. AI I think could use some work. I've found that hiding under the truck and tranquilizing your enemies so that you can recruit them is a good strategy. It doesn't work all the time, but it's a very effective method of abusing the AI. Boss AI isn't particularly that flash either at times. Pythons can be easily taken care of with simple hit and run tactics. Just shoot them and then run to the opposite hallway and repeat. Null, well, for the perfect soldier, he likes walking up against walls, making him an easy target to dispatch. I was pretty much just handed that boss fight. To be entirely fair, the AI wasn't as big an issue as the other two, but I thought I would use a mention as it was enough to annoy me. However, time is getting on, so we'll shuffle along to The Ugly, where I discuss graphics, visual presentation, and the game's score. Because my opinion will be skewed if I was to talk about how the game looked in PPSSPP, I will use the footage recorded off my Vita for the visual section of the review. Visually, for what the PSP had to offer, Portable Ops is a graphically appealing game. Even played back on a Vita, the game looks nice, but it's also shown its age. After all, 2006 was almost a decade ago. The cutscenes I felt were the best parts of the game. The game's story is stylized in the form of an animated comic, very much like the Metal Gear Solid digital graphic novel. Some scenes are voiced, with characters returning from Metal Gear Solid 3 being reprised by their respective voice actors.
Justice, huh? The meaning of justice can change from one day to the next. A professional soldier never brings justice into the mission. The only ones who need a reason to fight are the ones who fight for a living.
However, the cutscenes and voice segments are kept to a minimum, I presume to accommodate the storage capacity of the UMD. Granted, the amount of voice cutscenes, that's still impressive to say the least. The soundtrack overall was pretty good. With the Metal Gear saga, I've always felt the music sets the mood, and this game is no exception. There's certainly a 70s vibe to it, and I like it. Sets the scene, sets the time period, and sets the mood. That's exactly what you want when it comes down to video game music. So from here, let's square this review up with my final thoughts. Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops is a good portable option for your Metal Gear fix. While it's not the first Metal Gear game for the PSP, it's the first to be styled similar to its console counterparts. The downfall to the game, however, comes down to the controls, but given that the PSP only had one analog stick, the game had to make do with what it had, and with being able to have the option of using different control schemes, it certainly beats sticking with just one. If you're looking to play the Metal Gear games in order, this one is entirely optional. It's nice to know what happened in that time period, but you only need to know a handful of things since some of it goes unexplained. The concept is well done, and it was executed the best it could. Still, give the game a go. You'll have fun with it nonetheless, control issues or not. With that, it's time for my rating. I'll give Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops a Python out of 10. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review. Jesus Christ, what have they done to you, Venus? You don't even look that great when upscaled on the Vita either.